Hello guys, today we're going to be making a foldable on how to add and subtract decimals. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. What we're going to do is I want you to fold this paper just like the other foldable that we did recently. Go ahead and fold it in half the short way. Make a crease. And then I want you to fold it in the sides into the center and make 2 more folds like that. From there we're going to fold it just like last time, fold it in half to have a 4 window hole foldable. And then what we're going to do just like last time, guys, I want you to cut it, the top and the bottom. Now, we're going to do this a little bit differently. Before we were opening up like this time we're going to be opening up this way. So what I want you to go ahead and label this, we're going to label this operations with decimals. And then we're going to go ahead and put what operation we're going to use on each of the folds. We're going to have addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Let's make it the star just because I don't want you to get confused with when it's an X. Okay, so these are the 4 operations we're going to be looking at today. Let's go ahead and open up the addition. Okay, we're going to write an example of how to add decimals. Now on the left hand side we're going to be taking some short notes that we need to keep in mind. The first thing we need to keep in mind, and we've already talked a little bit about this, is that we need to keep decimals lined up. That's the most important thing that we need to keep in mind when adding and subtracting fractions. Right now we're just focusing on adding. So let's try an example. Let's say that I had 7.07 plus 3.3 and they want us to solve this. What would I do? Well, the first thing I need to do is keep decimals lined up. So that's the first step that I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and line up the decimals. By lining up, we mean one on top of the other. So I'm going to write 3.3. And then we also have talked about this. When there is an opening or something blank, we add an imaginary 0. So we're going to add zeros where there is no number. So we're going to add an imaginary 0 right here for that step. And from there, what we're going to do is now we can add them. So now we can add. So that's going to be what we do straight down. 7 plus 0 is 7. 0 plus 3 is 3. And 7 plus 3 is 10. And we always box our answer. Now we're going to go ahead and continue, but with subtraction. So with subtraction, we're going to go ahead and do our example here. And let's write our notes. In subtraction, we also have to keep in mind that we have to line up the decimals. So let's say that they gave us 8.75 minus 6.279. The first step I'm going to do is line up the decimals. So I'm going to do 8.75 and I'm going to write the 6 right here because I want the decimals to be one on top of each other. So This would be 2, 7, 9. And we're going to be subtracting. Just like when we were adding, if there is a blank somewhere, we're going to add 0 where there is a blank. So we're going to go ahead and add a 0 right there. What's going to be my last step? I'm actually going to do the operation. In this case, subtract. So now I can subtract. Of course, I can't do the subtraction. I'm going to have to borrow as well as here. So I go all the way over here. I am borrowing. So now I have 10 minus 9 is 1, 4, oops. Sorry guys, I caught a mistake. I should have written 14. So then I'm going to do 14 minus 7, and that is 7. 6 minus 2, 4. 8 minus 6 is 2. So this is my final answer. We're almost done, guys. Next thing we're going to do is multiplication. Now the first thing I want you to write here is that we do not have to line up the decimals, either in multiplication or division. We don't care about those decimals. So we do not have to line up the decimals. Okay, so we just write and multiply normally. The only extra thing that we need to remember is to count the numbers to the right of decimal to figure out where decimal goes. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. So let's say that they gave me to work out 3.2 times 7.15. I'm going to write that out. Doesn't matter which one I put on top. I always like to use the one that has the more numbers. So in this case, I'm going to put 7.15 on top. Now we're going to be doing 7.15 times 3.2. So we're going to go ahead and put times. And we don't have to line it up, so it should be 3.2. And from there, we just do the math. So it would be 5 times 2 is 10. Carry the 1. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. 2 times 7 is 14. Then we put a 0 as a placeholder. We continue with the 3. 3 times 5 is 15. Carry a 1. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4. And then 3 times 1 is 21. The last step we need to do is to count how many numbers to the right of the decimal we have. In this case, we have 1, 2, the number 1 and 5, and then we have one more, which is the 2. So we have to count 3 spaces after we have added these. So that would be 0 plus 0 is 0. 3 plus 5 is 8. 4 plus 4 is 8. 1 plus 1 is 2. And then bring down the 2. So my decimal is going to go 3 down, so that would be my final answer. Okay, now guys, we're going to be looking at how to divide with decimals. So we have a couple of important steps that we need to keep in mind. The first thing that we need to keep in mind is that we cannot divide by something let me zoom in. We cannot divide by something that has a decimal. Therefore, our first step is going to be to move decimal on both numbers. Until the outside number has no more decimals. Okay, so let's say, for example, that they wanted us to do 5.7. So let's do 17.35 divided by 5.7. We cannot divide by 5.7 because it has this decimal. So what it's telling me is we're going to move this decimal outside. We're going to move it until it makes it a whole number to the right. So I'm going to move it, and I can stop right there because that's making it a whole number. So that's going to be 57. Now if I did it here, I also have to do it here. So I actually have 173.5 being divided by 57. Now I can actually divide this. So once that's happened, we are going to divide normally, and we're going to place decimal on top of where it should be. Now the reason I say that is because sometimes we forget to enter it, and then if we wait until the end, we will enter it in the wrong place. So the decimal needs to be right there, since it is right there on the number that we are dividing by. Now we can continue. 57 goes into 173 about 2 times. That's going to be okay. Well, I'm going to check that. So I'm going to go ahead and see if that works. It goes in. Okay, it seems that it goes in one more time. So I'm just going to go ahead and rewrite it down here so I can continue it. I know it goes in 3 times, since the number I divided by and then subtracted, I ended up with a bigger number than 57. That's how I know that I need to divide one more time. So instead of 2, I'm going to go ahead and put 3. So 7 times 3, 21. 5 times 3 is 15, plus 2 is 17. And I got really close. Bring down the 5. Okay, 57 goes into 25 0 times, so we bring down a 0. 57 goes into 250 about, so you have to think kind of 60 would go into 250 about 4 times. So 7 times 4, so I can go ahead and cross that one out. So 7 times 4 is 28. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 2 is 22. We subtract, we borrow, and we can stop right there. So as long as you have about 2 decimals, 2 numbers after the decimal, you pretty much have a pretty exact answer. So our answer would be 3.04. And that's it, you guys. That's my final answer.